Yeah. Hello. So this
Hi,
is how are you?
I am good. I can hear you. Yes, it's working.
Awesome. So this is another episode of KJTV. You get to meet your candidates, and today we are here with Ms. Huldah MOMANYI. She is the current or the incumbent Mwanyagetinge president, Minnesota. Right. So I will briefly let her introduce herself and just tell us more about who Hulda is.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Judy, for having me on the program. This is exciting. My name is Huldah Mumanyi Hiltsley, current Madam President of Mwanyagetinge USA here in Minnesota. And I am excited to be a part of this conversation to talk about the work that has been done within our community, to talk about what the future holds, and obviously, talk about the elections that are coming up this Saturday. Hopefully, our community will turn out in large numbers. But personally, I am just passionate about community. I have my undergrad in international business, international relations, and reconciliation studies, and then also I have a master's in global business management. I'm currently employed at Boston Scientific as a privacy operations manager. But really, my passion is community work, both here and in Kenya. And so I am a part of just this community that loves to give back, and that's what I've been doing as long as I could remember, really. But I'm excited about the opportunity to serve once again as Mwanyagetinge president.
Awesome. Great. I would like to reiterate a few, not really reiterate, just ask you a follow up question, right? So, from you're doing some work in Kenya. Can you tell us about the constituencies? What constituency do you belong to? Uh, what really drove you to
Yes.
get or go serve in Kenya?
Absolutely. I mean, I was born in Kenya, and my heart and my passion for the Kenyan people has never left. I came to the U.S. when I was 9, but I still find myself being pulled back home. So my family is from Nyamemiso. That is close to, if you know where Tombe is, Tombe Tea Factory. So just around the corner there. And
What
so
what
that's
what corner? What?
so Tombe Tea Factory, once you pass it towards Magombo area, so Nyameme, so just a little town between Tombe and Magombo.
All right. So, what's your constituency, and who's your governor today? Like in Kenya?
In Kisii, I believe the governor is Honorable Amos, and I don't know who my MP or my MCA is really. A lot of the work that I do is both within Kisii and Nyamira County, but I know that obviously Nyamemiso is in Nyamira County, but I'm not intertwined in the ground politics, especially the MCA, the MPs in that
Okay.
area.
All
Say,
right.
yeah.
Okay. How about your governor? Then, okay. So here I'm gonna do just some questions now regards to here. So,
Yeah.
who all do we serve as Mwanyagetinge? So we serve Mwanyagetinge. So is it just the Kisi community? Does it involve anybody else? Is it Kisi, Nyamira? I mean, what does that look like for you?
Yes, so Mwanyagetinge, as per the constitution, there's about, I believe, 9 constituencies that make up the groups within Mwanyagetinge. But on the constitution, it really allows, yes, the majority of the population of the Mwanyagetinge is Kisi. But the constitution does allow people who are not Kisi to be a part of Mwanyagetinge as long as they have the best interest of the vision and mission of Mwanyagetinge.
All right. Oh, amazing. So what is the mission statement for Mwanyagetinge? USA.
Very good. Yes. So the mission statement of Mwanyagetinge, I have it here for you. It is basic. It's very simple. It's to cater to the needs of Kenyans here in the diaspora here in Minnesota. And to be honest, in the past we've had candidate members from various from various states. We have a couple of members from Washington State. We've had a couple of members from Texas, but the majority of the individuals who are a part of Mwanyagetinge organization are here in the state of Minnesota. So the mission of Mwanyagetinge is very straightforward. It is provide services to Kenyans in Minnesota and elsewhere in the United States for education, welfare, social, and economic advancements, and to engage in any lawful activities of which the corporation may be organized within the Minnesota Nonprofit Corporation under the Secretary of State. That is the core mission of Mwanyagetinge organization.
Awesome. Well, great deal. And you said you came here when you were 9, and really your mission, or what you foresee is growing when you get in here, right? So I will go back to some of the questions that I had for you, and once I get some comments, I'm gonna pop those in there for you too. So now that you're seeking for re-election, tell us why people need to vote for HULDAH.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's not even about voting for me. It's about belonging somewhere. Um, the last couple of years that I've been leading Mwanyagetinge and the executive team, we have a lot of people calling and saying, "Hey, I need help." But then the first question I ask them, "Are you a member of Mwanyagetinge?" "Well, no, but I know of it. I have come to the events that you guys have hosted, but I'm not a member." And in the end, what I've realized is that there's power in numbers. There's power when we come together as a collective and galvanize under one umbrella, not only within ourselves, but beyond just the Kenyan community, beyond the Mugsi community, beyond the African immigrant community in Minnesota, right? And so when you talk about, tell us about why people should vote for me, it's not about, yes, absolutely vote for me, but it's about belonging somewhere and being a part of something greater than oneself. And when it comes to really resources and resource distribution, people are looking at what's where are the numbers, who is most organized, and where that data comes from is critical and important. And so that's why I really want to encourage our people register. Whether or not you're voting for me, whether or not you're voting for my opponent, register to be a part of Mwanyagetinge, because that shows that we're unified. And with that data and with that number, we can definitely pool resources into our community, just like other communities are doing out here.
All right. So I'm gonna ask you about the criterion, right? So we are all inclusive, maybe like we want those collective numbers, right? So um, what if I want to participate in an event, but I just didn't know about that mission? What would be your criterion for admitting me into that? Because sometimes people don't know that there's a protocol. There are things that people need to follow. So what would that look like for leadership for you?
In terms of events.
No, in terms of like, how do people become members if they're not even privy to that information? How do they know? Hey, this is what the criterion is. This is how we do our business. Just like when you apply for a job, you're given a criterion, right? And that
Absolutely.
has, yes. So
Yeah, so
let's
to
expound
be
on
a
that.
member of yeah, to be a member of Mwanyagetinge is very simple. There's two main steps that you have to follow. First of all, you have to register. There is a registration form that you fill out. And in that registration form, it asks you obviously for your basic information. It asks you for the constituency that you come from, and then other basic information that is needed for the organization to, the data that we collect for the various purposes. And then you pay $20 fee as a member. That is bi-yearly, so every 2 years, basically every election year. And you're a member. And ultimately, I think the first part of your question you asked about, how does one get to know about Mwanyagetinge and join, right? Um, I think that comes down to all of us as members, as communities. Yes, the executive team and the leadership team has to drive that initiative, has to get the word out, has to be intentional about bringing people in and about creating programs that attract new members, that attract people, that attract, somebody to stay in Mwanyagetinge. But ultimately, if you're a Mwanyagetinge member and if you see there's a benefit here, you tell your friend at work, you tell your friend at church, hey, there's an organization here that caters to our needs. There's an organization here that is for us and by us. So please come join me. And when it comes to the leadership team, especially with my team, the time that we've been in office, we have recruited close to 200 people, new members into the organization. Could we have done better? Absolutely. That there's obviously room for improvement in terms of recruiting more members. If you look at the data that is provided, Dr. Professor Kefo Tiso did a study, first time ever in the history of Mwanyagetinge, where an in-depth study was done on the data of Kenyans in the whole entire US, and he really focused on Minnesota because Mwanyagetinge was driving that initiative. Come to find out, we're second ranked in terms of numbers, and that data is just the census, right? So it doesn't really reflect the true numbers of Kenyans in Minnesota, especially the Kisii community. It could be up to the 30,000, 40,000, and so the number that is currently registered right now in Mwanyagetinge is very small compared to the data that shows how many we are. And that goes to show that there's a lot of work to be done in order for more members to join Mwanyagetinge.
Okay, quick question about the form that you talked about, right? So does that
Yes.
form capture all the numbers that you have there, and it captures all the constituencies? So does it, it doesn't say what if you're non-Kisii or other special considerations. Does it give you an opportunity to write like a special letter? And the reason I ask that is because anytime I can read a form, I mean, not everybody would be able to actually reach out and translate that to. Maybe I need to reach out and just let them know what my special circumstance is. Can you go through the form and it lists the number, like where people come from? So it gives you an option to tick. Does it give you an option to explain? How does somebody who does not know how to fill out that form interpret it? Do you have it in other languages, or you just have it, in English? Because we're serving a community that is very diverse, like you said. Not everybody is able to read and actually comprehend the English language. So how do you explain that? Or how do you break it down? Do you have it in other forms? I mean, how?
Yeah. So the current form right now is in English, and it's not in any other language. I mean, that is something definitely that can be worked on in terms of translating it to maybe the more prominent language like Swahili or Kisii or any other language that really caters to the constituency of the members of Mwanyagetinge, right? But within the form, I believe there's a spot where you can put your address, and if it's not something that is noted, you can put other. There's a short answer for other there. And if I'm not mistaken, it also has a comment section where you can make notes in terms of, maybe, hey, I might need help with this, or hey, I have a question about this. And then I think on top of the form, if I'm not mistaken, it has the contact information for Mwanyagetinge. It says, if you have any questions, please reach out to the team, and they can be able to assist you.
All right. So, have a question here, and some comments are channeled to me through. But these are an opinion from the public, and this has been voiced before, that the administration was not transparent. Could you expound on that briefly?
Absolutely. When we talk about transparent, what does that mean? What is the specific question that they are referring to? That can definitely help in terms of, getting the question answered. But in terms of my team and
Transparency
what
in
we have,
terms of so in terms of our their leaders who were handpicked, they did not go through any vetting. In terms of there was a meeting that was called so that people could address issues that have been going on, and those were not addressed in terms of how many grants are out there, and that was actually addressed like yesterday. How many are there, and what are they for? So that was asked yesterday, and for me, I mean, I'm not out there. I'm just moderating,
yes.
but I want you to address those things because there are people who ask those, and yes, as we cater for the public, we want to address those. And uh, we have had other people in you know who are in your administration or in your administration who say they didn't have that information or those details to share. So we want to know, I mean, who can share and who is privy to that information.
Absolutely. So there's a couple of things that you brought up. You brought up about the handpicked leaders, which I'm not quite sure who you're referring to. But then you also talked about the meeting. There was a meeting that was held. I don't know if you're referring to the AGM that was held. You talked about the grants, and then you talked about other people, other leaders within the organization that were not privy to information. So let's tackle the first one. So the handpicked leaders. Was there any more information pertaining to that question? Because the only person who was brought on to the leadership team was the organizing secretary, and this was because the current then the secretary had left without any notice and basically leaving Mwanyagetinge business just hanging. And so we had to bring in somebody to basically fill that in. And really, the Constitution does not lay out what happens when an individual is exits the office. So this was a discussion with the advisory council, and we did bring in an individual who was he was a representative, and he moved on to be the secretary for Mwanyagetinge. I think that's the leader that you are referring to, but other than that, there's no other leaders that were quote this handpicked that has been stated. In regards to the meeting, I believe, were you referring to the AGM meeting that was had, or is there another
Okay,
meeting?
so the question was, would you was the does the Constitution specifically say that an election has to be done when somebody exits? Because I'm sure you have some guiding rules on what a nonprofit looks like. So does
Right.
it tell us, okay, if somebody exits, I mean, at least they have to give us the records, tell us, hey, I'm leaving. There are issues that are pending because when somebody registers and pays their $20,
Correct.
then they should be able to have an explanation that somebody left and this money is here and I'm handing over every issue or every other pending issue to this person. And we should have that transparency. So here, I mean, maybe that's something that should be addressed.
I mean, when you talk about handing down, that was never done, right? This individual left without notifying anybody, and we had to scramble to make sure that the business of Mwanyagetinge continues. And we did make, once the secretary position was filled, because that was a critical position, we did let the members know about that individual coming in and being put in that position to continue as the secretary.
All right.
In regard,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Sorry. Go ahead.
I think that's all I have to, that's what I wanted to say about that part.
Okay. So tell me about 990. What does that, as a nonprofit, does that reason it?
Absolutely. So a 990 basically is a form that is you have to file as a nonprofit, right? A return of an organization exempt from income tax. And so that is basically what allows us under the Section 501c status as a nonprofit to function, and basically allows the organization to be exempt from income tax.
Okay. So how about in terms of grants? Does that resonate? Then in terms of grant applications, like what that is going to look like for the community, and what does it what does that entail? And so
In
this
terms of,
is a question from
okay.
uh, no question from a member.
Okay, there was an opinion from the public that the administration was not transparent. Can you explain? Again, transparent about what? We're talking about grants now?
No. I'm gonna tell. So this is a question from. So the members can ask questions. So they're
Yes.
asking about grants. So when anybody asks for a grant, are we able to explain to them what that looks like?
Absolutely. We are able to explain to them what that looks like. That is actually, to be honest, if you're a nonprofit organization, this is public information. And every grant that Mwanyagetinge has applied for, that can be found publicly, that can be requested publicly and be given out. In terms of the,
The
in terms of
990
Mwanyagetinge,
and
mhm.
the 990, yes.
Yes. So in terms of Mwanyagetinge organization and the grants, absolutely. We had a number of grants the last 2 years that we have been in office, and we have done our best to basically communicate what those grants were, right? And obviously from the events that we've held, the 23 events that we've held the last 2.5 years, that has definitely been because of the grants that we had received and that we had applied for, that we had put work in and brought into the organization and then executed as per the grant request.
All right. So if there's a follow-up question on that, I will definitely let you know. So I'm going to take you back to here. So I see. So from 391 to 241,000, right?
Say it again.
So in your flyer, it says the organization actually brought forward you know all these developments from
Yes.
$391 to 241,000. So I think that's where if A and B does not go to C
Does
or
that
what,
match, right?
it doesn't match. So then people are questioning because we had
Yeah.
COVID. We had all these things going on because programming has to correspond with whatever you put in has to respond with their output. So could you briefly touch on that? Because that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Mhm.
So we're talking about the 391 to the 240,000 that we brought into the office. Okay. What I'm gonna do is let me just, if you don't mind, I don't know if I'm able to share. If not, that is fine.
Mm.
But I
Okay.
want to go through the grants, how we got to that 240.
No,
So at
and
least,
it's okay. It's so what we'll do is we can get to that just so that we
yeah,
can
that's
get
fine.
yeah.
Yeah. So I'm just pulling up a list of grants and how we got to that point, so that way, we have an understanding of, the discrepancies that, keeps on coming up. Um, from the public. And keep in mind too, some of this information is privy only to the Mwanyagetinge members, right? So we can't be here giving out information to non-Mwanyagetinge members. And that's why we have AGMs. That's why organizations have AGMs to share this information. But what I can share is obviously the number of grants that we received, and then also let's see here,
All right.
also the amount
The
that
amount. Okay,
was
so you know
received.
what?
Yeah.
Like you said, so then you're going against, if somebody is not a Mwanyagetinge member, then they're not privy to that information, like you said. So then if we share that information, then they're not privy to it. So what is the main mode of communication that you use? So for every Mwanyagetinge member who registered, do you think they received all that information, or if they requested for it, they could receive it? Because we don't want you to share it.
Yeah.
But
So let me clarify one thing. When I talk about sharing, I'm sharing information that can be public. That is public information. Again, you can check in there. If an organization, a 501c organization, applies for a grant, you could tell what they've applied for, how much it was. That I can share with the public. But the details of the grant and how it was executed, that is privy to Mwanyagetinge members. And that information is shared at the AGM.
okay, so one last question that
Yeah.
people have. Okay, so questions from the public. So what is the main mode of like how do you converse with all the members? So is it via WhatsApp? Do you make phone calls? Do you have all their emails? And are you able to confirm receipt that they all received this information so that they can make informed decisions about what is all in there for them?
Yeah. So the mode of communication for Mwanyagetinge, there's a couple. The first one is the Telegram group. There's two Telegram groups. One of them is the social Telegram group, and then the other one is the business Telegram group. The other way that we communicate with members is through email channels, and then also we are in social media in terms of Facebook, but that is not as consistent as the other two channels of communication.
Okay, so I'm gonna say this. Great, on very short notice. Thank you for coming through. If there are more questions, who is the communications director? How do we reach people who just want to make sure they hear? All right, now I have another question. That was not.
So I'm going to answer the first question. We don't have a communications director, but that's a great position, And keep in mind, Dr. Judy, the Mwanyagetinge executive team, really the leadership team are all volunteers. So if there's anybody out there who wants to be a communications director for Mwanyagetinge, welcome. I know there's an honorary community communications director, Mr. Henry MOMANYI, who is always communicating out here. But again, specifically for Mwanyagetinge, we don't have an assigned communications director specifically. And then the other, I think you said there were some questions on the
there's one there. There are some that I will see. There are some that are posted to me, and I'll share everything.
So how does Mwanyagetinge award the tenures of supply and oversee and cuckoo? Great question. That is a great question. So really from day one, let me just provide context here. From day one, we have been very intentional about providing the community with the resources needed, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic. And the goal for this team was to really keep the resources within our community as much as we could. If we can get the service or the vendor if we can buy from somebody within the community, we do that. So when it comes to the vendors and the tenants, I guess.
What is the vetting process? Because you know what, every tender has to go through a vetting process. You're given 5 tenders. How do you know who applies for that tender? Who knows about the tenders? Because if somebody doesn't know about the tender, then how do they apply for it? Could you break that down for us?
Yes, absolutely. So we have been very transparent in terms of specifically with these two things that this individual has asked about, oversee and cuckoo. And one of the requirements that we had laid out was that, you had to be from our community. You have to be known within our community to be doing that business. And we put it out there publicly. Dr. Chris Omare was the one in charge of really governing and managing that process. And I believe he did a fantastic job putting it out there in the public, especially when it came to the oversee part. Because if you look at what we've done in terms of the food insecurity grants that we've received, the majority of it has been obviously the unga and the flour. And so Dr. Chris has, I believe he did an amazing job making sure that this was out there, and we really vetted several vendors, and then we settled on, I believe, 3 to 4 main vendors who would supply the flour from Mwanyagetinge. And keep in mind that these individuals, one of the other requirements that the state had requested us is to make sure that whoever who has the subcontracting agreement with us, they have to also have a registered business with the Secretary of State. So that is one of the things that really cut down our vendors to 3 or 4. But I'm confident in saying that Dr. Chris Omare did an amazing job making sure that he followed that process.
All right. So you have just one person making sure that they follow through the process? Because I thought, there are checks and balances in everything that you do. Yeah. So and that
Yes.
would be a question for another day, because here, I mean, when there's any, like, okay, so I'll tell
It's
you,
a quick answer.
in terms of
It's a
medicine,
very it's
yes,
a
after
very
seven,
simple answer to that question.
yeah,
Every time we made a decision, especially within the executive team, it was all of us voting for that decision. So somebody would be assigned a task and they would go out, bring the research, bring it back to the team, and the team had to sign off before anything could happen. So for example, Dr. Chris, he posted on our communication channels, hey, we are doing this, we need vendors, can you please reach out to me? Let's have a conversation about what this opportunity looks like. And then once he collected that information, he brought it to the team and he was like, these are the vendors, these are the individuals that I've talked to. Let's make sure that they meet what we're looking for and if they can execute what we need. And then once all of us sign off on that, then we proceed with acquiring that person or that vendor or that organization or that business for service. So
right,
it has never been a one person individual making a decision ever.
okay. All right. So you know what? I'm gonna tell you this. So yeah. Here. So again, of course, sometimes there are questions from the public. There are things that I can see. There are things that
No,
I
I
think
see
we
it
don't want
too.
to do.
That's
Yeah.
I have no problem. It's
Yeah.
about being transparent. So
Yeah, it's about transparency. So again, I think just knowing the processes, and right now, I think going into elections, of course, knowing that sometimes we are held to a standard, and I really enjoy this opportunity. Just having this very straight conversation, and just you reaching out. I really thank you for your time, and
yeah,
thank you. And we will be hosting another session so that
absolutely,
you're able to meet, the other opponents too, and just discuss what you're what you
absolutely.
envision for this team. All right.
And,
Well,
and and that's the beauty of this setting, right? The members need to know who is running and why they're running and what the mission is.
mhm.
And so I've had conversations with several of the members who are running for seats, and really for me, my conversation with them have been, are you ready? Whatever happens on election day, you have to be ready to step in and lead and really serve the community in a manner that is acceptable. And so this is great, healthy conversations that we are having, and I welcome all of it. I do. So
Awesome.
thank you,
Awesome.
Dr. Judy, for doing this, because I think you're the only media station who actually took the initiative to put this together, because I know the community really wanted something to really look forward to in terms of the candidates. So
Well,
appreciate
thank you
your
so
effort.
much, and thank you for your time. Ciao.
Absolutely. Thank